Hello and welcome. This is John Allen Mollenhauer. My friends call me John Allen or Jam, and I hope you will too. This is the Live Like a Pro podcast, audio version for YouTube. I'm looking forward to today really getting into building on our last couple podcasts, which are talking about like what formed performance lifestyle and like what's the real driver in this particular episode for why we want to live a performance lifestyle versus just say a healthy lifestyle or a fitness lifestyle. In other words, what substantiates this whole new idea of a performance lifestyle, the next step in the evolution of lifestyle that I've been really spearheading and giving rise to over the last 15 to 20 years of my life. Now, I'm not the only person in the entire world who has been developing this idea called the performance lifestyle. But you see, out there in the world right now today, when you do a search on performance lifestyle, you'll see a lot of extreme type sports living a performance lifestyle. I mean, this whole idea was born in elite athletics, so it had a sort of sporty slant from the start. But you'll also see a lot of the fitness guys, coming in and developing around performance lifestyle or the idea of a high performance lifestyle. And it's very fitness oriented, fitness and psychology. In my last episode, I delved into a lot of what we currently think about the whole idea of lifestyle itself. I delved into, how most of us weren't really taught that much about living, about lifestyle. We never really learned the fundamentals. But the one group that actually knows a lot about lifestyle, maybe not so consciously, but culturally understands lifestyle, is the population, the one population that directly links their lifestyle with their performance and their success, and that is the athletes. These are the people who manage their energy on a day-to-day basis so that they can function and perform at a very high level. They come from and are either born into or come from cultures. When I say born into, meaning, as you get raised through schooling, or come from cultures as an adult where they were inspired, where they were supported, and they had structures in place that enabled them to train in a way and focus on their passion, whether it would be whatever type of sport that may be. And they had that structure, they had that support, and they had that culture that reinforced the idea that you sleep, you eat, you train so that you can function and perform well in a particular game during a particular season in their lives. Now that's the athletic experience. That's what athletes learn over time, especially those who really progress beyond junior high school and high school and go into college and professional athletics. They get indoctrinated into this peak season, this preseason, this peak season, and this postseason idea, and they live according to the schedule throughout the course of that 1 to 2 decades, if you're fortunate to make it that far. And it's because of that that they are able to perform, look, and feel the way they do, because their whole lives are oriented, their whole lifestyle is oriented around showing up and being able to function and perform at a very high level. Now, the general population doesn't think this way. The general population, kind of eats whatever, drinks whatever, exercises whenever, sleeps if ever, right? They just kind of take on their job, take on their family, take on their job or their career, or maybe they roll out of a business. And lifestyle is sort of, what you can squeak in between your meetings, your obligations, your, basically what you can do to keep yourself going at best while you achieve your goals. And we're not, especially if you haven't had athletic experience, we're not really indoctrinated into the idea. I'm talking to the driven business professional, the entrepreneur, the family man or woman who are, up to something in their lives, right? Their business pursuits, maybe even a creative pursuit in their life. If they don't have that athletic experience behind the scenes, they don't necessarily approach it in the structured way that an athlete would. Right? And that's not to say that all athletes are really that smart. Most athletes are, as I said earlier, have that cultural support, which is why they live the way they do. But athletes often forget about that after they get out of sports. They just go right back to living like the standard American diet, and living like the standard American lifestyle that everybody else does. Caught up, overstimulated, and under recuperated, uh, overfed, and often overnourished. Super busy. Maybe because they were athletes, they're probably more physically active, whereas the general population gets less physically active as they start to feel the tiredness and fatigue build up, especially as they get older in their lives. And before you know it, weight and health and disease complications, so the diseases of lifestyle, I should say, start to really kick into gear. And before you know it, you're living two lifestyles. You're living the lifestyle that you need to succeed, and then you got this other lifestyle that you sort of try to wedge in between all your obligations to try to solve the symptoms of all these problems that are emerging. And that's not a performance lifestyle, right? That's a person living an overwhelming and unhealthy lifestyle, an unmanageable life, trying to wedge the latest tactics from the latest health and wellness magazines into their life. And every once in a while you may get some traction and it lasts for a little while, but it's not going to last for long because you're not really coming from the right mindset. And the whole dieting world, a lot of the fitness world, is always installing the wrong mindset because we're making goals out of things that are not really goals, right? Staying healthy is not a goal. It's not a natural goal at all. You came into this world, for the most part, you came in healthy. You lost it while you were alive, right? Extraneous situations notwithstanding, right? But you came in healthy. You lost it while you were living, and at some future point you have to get it back, which is lends itself to at least me understanding why we make goals out of being healthy, right? But the idea of health itself is not a goal. Health is a byproduct of the way you live, right? Energy is a byproduct of the way you live. Health is a byproduct of the way you live. The way you function and perform is a byproduct of the way you live. It's all a function of lifestyle. Lifestyle is the elephant in the room, but because there's so many aspects to lifestyle, and maybe all you really learned about was get some sleep, maybe eat a little bit better, exercise a little bit more, or eat less and exercise more. If that was the extent of your lifestyle education, then if you're living the general lifestyle, the standard American lifestyle that most of us live, then you're not going to, by default, be very energetic, very healthy, and you're going to struggle with performance. I mean, let's just dive into this for a little second so you can get a concept and an understanding of the before, or the that was then side of this equation when we talk about getting into a performance lifestyle. The average person wakes up. They wake up tired because they went to bed late and didn't get even close to 8 hours of solid rest and sleep. So they wake up, they probably don't have a full morning routine fully baked in, and they roll straight out of bed and they go right into their iPhone or their email, and they start consuming long before they start creating. And then they go downstairs. If you're a parent, you've got kids, so you're running around. I totally understand that. That's understandable. I mean, I have a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old. I know what life in the morning can be like, right? But if you're getting up at the same time that they are, then you've missed a whole opportunity. Now, I'm not talking about the night side of the equation. I'm starting with the morning, and I'll get to the night because this is really about a 24-hour cycle. So life operates in a cycle. It's not just morning and night. Those are just labels. This is all part of one continuous cycle of life. So, and then the first thing they need to dive into is a cup of coffee. Now, before you think I'm going to pick on your cup of coffee, let me just tell you, I'm going to pick on your cup of coffee. Because I am, right? Taking coffee, I mean, there's a lot worse things you can do in the world, but if you need that to get going, you're doing something wrong in your life. And that's outside of the enjoyment of coffee. I'm talking about if you need coffee, right? There's a lot of other beverages one can enjoy, but if you need coffee, no one drinks coffee. You don't swish coffee in your mouth and go, oh my God, that's unbelievable. You got to remember, what Starbucks sells is not really coffee. It's a sugar souffle, right? It's it's basically liquid ice cream that's warm because it's got all this other stuff in it, and oh, by the way, it's marinated with coffee. So let's not even go down that road right now. We could do a whole podcast on that by itself. But you're actually taking in caffeine. That's the reason why people drink coffee. It just gets shrouded by so much other stuff, and before you know it, not only are you one step closer to some halitosis, but you've got, that's bad breath for those of you who use that term on a regular basis, but you that's what you need to get going. Now, you can actually get stimulated by a lot of things in the morning. You don't actually need it to be coffee. You can get stimulated by movement. Heck, you can get stimulated by water. You can get stimulated by thought. You can get stimulated by a lot of different things, but we've been sold down this road of coffee. All right. So think about what we've just done. We've consumed before we've created. We've probably entered into the stream of thought, like what happened the night before, whether it was a show or the problems we may be having, or even good stuff that's going on in our lives, but we haven't really gotten grounded yet. And we're already into the day. And if you're getting up at the same time with your kids, you're already getting connected to everything they're up to, and it can start off a very harried day. And remember, you're already tired. So you go to work, and maybe you need to drive to work, so there goes an hour right there. Hopefully you don't. Proximity is one of the things that we really focus on building in a performance lifestyle so that you're not wasting a ton of time traveling. But if you do need to travel, even people with optimized lives or optimized lifestyles, I should say, so there's oftentimes travel involved, and you can use that time pretty wisely. So we automatically go into the day. Now, chances are you probably didn't have a nutrient-rich breakfast. You probably ate the standard American diet, or not far from it, right? You could wake up and eat very nutrient-poor diets and think you're actually eating healthy, which is essentially, ultimately creating a lot of problems in your body. Though you might be building muscle and losing weight, it may not be a nutrient-rich diet that's actually supporting your energy, health, and performance long term. It might be a near-term deal because you're dealing with the symptoms of being overweight. Why? Because of a lot of things we just mentioned and a lot of things we're going to get into. So you crush it, you get out in the morning, and before you know it, you're caught up fully in the day. You might need coffee throughout the day. You may or may not have exercised in the morning, but you're super busy. And if you're super busy, now you're spending energy at an alarming rate. I'm talking about if you're living anywhere close to the standard American or westernized lifestyle. Now, you haven't exercised, you haven't moved, you probably haven't hit the sun, gotten any sun. Who knows how much water you've drank? And you're already consuming other types of liquids, probably eating a little bit here and there to keep yourself going. And before you know it, you're actually, I should say, you're in the dark during the day. Now you say, well, John, what are you talking about? I'm not in the dark during the day. My office is lit pretty well. Well, you're not out actually in the sun. And, human beings evolved naturally. We're supposed to actually get sun. And we're supposed to get some sun first thing in the morning, which you probably blew right through. And then you're supposed to get sun throughout the day, particularly at high noon. Our circadian rhythms really depend on this. So you work and you work and you work and you work throughout the course of the day, probably sitting more than you're standing. I'm not making judgments on anyone. I'm just saying typically what happens. And then you go through the day, you eat a fairly big lunch, you come back, and you probably struggle for a good portion of the rest of the day unless you have some stimulating activities going on, because you do actually have a lot of food in your stomach. Now, I know sleep experts will often say that it's really the dip in the afternoon that causes that feeling of tiredness. But I will tell you this, I've tested this both ways, and if you're feeling a dip in the afternoon, yes, circadian rhythm wise, that is in fact what happens. But if your body's also digesting a lot of food at the exact same time, chances are pretty good you're going to be way more tired because digestion takes a lot of energy. So you go into the night, and if you've been driving all day, maybe you're hoping for that second wind. But a second wind really isn't just a second wind. It's a debit off your longevity. Now, that's room for a longer conversation and a podcast on its own, as are many pieces of what I'm talking about here today, but I'm just giving you an overview. So you go through the day, you get that second wind, and before you know it, where your day maybe used to stop at 4, 5, or 6 o'clock in previous generations, now you're just ready to start your next second day from 5 o'clock until roughly midnight, right? Another 6 to 7 hours of work. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of work that you're doing, all day during your employment. I'm talking about the fact that, work is life is work, and work is a major part of life. Okay, it's energy expenditure. So you might go right into a number of other endeavors around 6 or 7 o'clock. You may have travel, and who knows, at that point, a lot of people are really worn down today because of the pace of life, the amount of information we're processing, all that's really going on. So you might be sucking back some snacks, gearing up for maybe some post work festivities, beer or wine or whatnot, and dinner of, my God, any variety. But the thing is, in most cases, it's probably not whole organic. Forget the organic part. The organic is as best as you can. But whole food, whole nutrient rich foods, probably not whole nutrient rich foods. Now, for some of us, it is. But for most of us, it's not. The statistics around what people eat, you know, during their 3 squares a day is pretty horrendous. And when you factor in the buildup of exhaustion, the lack of activity, you build in then the poor eating, and then alcohol consumption. Because today, man, I have a lot of empathy, a ton of empathy for why people at the end of the day either eat a lot, watch a lot of TV, to buffer themselves, or take alcohol and potentially drugs just to get to bed, because our nervous systems are really frazzled. They can be very frazzled, especially if you're not yet into performance lifestyle concepts and you're just kind of going with the flow of today's fast-paced, relentlessly busy world, that we're all dealing with. You can either stay completely caught up in it and let it consume you, or you can be approaching this as a performance lifestyle, where the way your life is structured, your lifestyle strategy and your goals have a certain pattern and alignment to them, so that you're super efficient. And because you've done deep dives in every aspect of lifestyle, you know what to do and why to do it, when and how to do it at the right level, intensity, and consistency for you, so that you're not overspending your energy, you're not burning out or trading your health for success through a very poor lifestyle. What causes a poor lifestyle for most of us? It's usually that we're tired all the time. Because get back to the original part of this story. You already woke up tired, and then you have this onslaught of life and family and kids and travel and work, and then food and maybe too much food and lack of activity, and then this overstimulating activity at work, right? And now you're into the evening, and it just keeps going until eventually you get to bed. But in getting to bed, you were in the dark during the day, you really weren't in the sun, and you were overstimulated by your screen. But then you get home, and in your home life, you're sitting there with the lights on. So you're in the dark, relative dark during the day, but you're in the light during the night. Now your circadian rhythms are completely thrown off because you're taking in blue light like it was daytime when it's dark at night. And then factor in some Game of Thrones, a little Netflix binge, some food, you wind down. That one thing, even if you love what you do, right? At the end, believe me, I feel it myself. Sometimes I just want to come home and, get some, naked popcorn and sit in front of the tube and just, zone out in front of Netflix. Believe me, I teach performance lifestyle for a living. And, I feel that drive. I grew up in a family where, I remember being 12 and 13 and 14 years old. I can still to this day remember the television schedule from back during that day. I remember Monday night was 8 is Enough. Tuesday night was the Fonz and Laverne and Shirley. Wednesday night was Grizzly Adams. Thursday night was the Waltons. And Friday night, we probably went and watched a movie. TV is a huge part of our lives, and it's a big part of how we buffer ourselves in the evening. And what buffering actually is so that you're facing your exhaustion that you built up during the day in little bits and pieces, right? So you start to get more and more tired. You were overstimulated, and then you start to get more and more tired. But you can't go from super stimulation to being ready for bed. You need a buffer period in there. It's called life. You need that buffer period to sort of wind down. This is not a small thing. This is a huge thing. But if you do it in a way where you're buffering it with TV, food, and drugs and alcohol, and probably more work because you're just not ready to sort of you know send yourself off into la la land of sleep, right? So maybe you work even more. By the time you actually get to sleep, you're by no means ready for sleep. Now, midnight is midnight. It's halfway through the night. We should probably be in bed no later than 8 o'clock p.m. But a lot of us go to bed at 11, 12, and 1 o'clock. Now, believe me, I hear you. I'm a business guy. I'm an entrepreneur with 2 kids. All right, I run a burgeoning chain of centers. Um, I run a podcast. I author books. I travel. I speak. I get it, and I have other ventures as well. I have a nutritional product line. I understand what it takes, and that there's only 24 hours in a day. But you see, when you come into life, or eventually you arrive at a place where you can say, you know what, I got 15 and a half hours to work with every day, and that's it. When you do that, you maximize and optimize those 15 and a half hours, because you come into this life with a contract, and that is 1/3 of the life is off the table because the other 2/3 really depend on them. So I come from that mindset, and I now at 51, and I've been working my way towards this, but now at 51, like, that's a non-negotiable because I can't really function. I'm definitely on track to burning out or trading my health for success in a variety of very subtle capacities if I do not get a solid 8 plus, and you need more time in bed to actually do that. So, it's how efficient is your overall life? How well are your skills, your habits, and routines actually dialed in? This is lifestyle. When you get into a performance lifestyle, all the stuff I was just talking about, that's not how your day is playing. That's how it's playing out for 97% of the population. But the 3%, the healthy, high achieving people who thrive, don't live that way. They optimize the way they live. They recharge and restore their body, and they optimize the way they live on a regular basis, ongoing, year after year after year. And that's the reason why they're balanced and healthy people who can be high achieving, who can achieve even their most ambitious goals, um, while living in balance with vibrant health and peace of mind. And people often look at these people and say, oh, well, it's just they're able to do it just because they're rich. Well, they got rich in part because they achieved their goals without burning out or trading their health for success, and then they kept parlaying it into higher levels of function and performance, right? And they're there to enjoy it because they didn't burn out or trade their health for success. And it starts with sleep. I will tell you, friends, that it starts with sleep. If you overlook sleep, you're missing the boat from day one. You could go to every seminar on the planet, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts. You can go to every seminar on the planet and talk about how far you're going to go in life, but if you're skipping sleep, you're eventually going to hit the wall. Even if you're successful, you're going to eventually hit the wall. And it happens all the time to successful people. So then you go into sleep, and you probably takes you about an hour. You hop on your iPhone, more light. You're probably not wearing blue blockers, and you go to bed. But you're really in bed for a little while, and you fall asleep around 11, 12, or 1 o'clock, right? Already past midnight. So the window for your slow wave sleep and REM sleep, a lot of it you've already busted through. And then you're getting up at 6 o'clock, and you start the whole onslaught all over again. What does that tell you? What that tells you is that there's a lot of room for optimization. Those people, right? I had been one of those people for a very long time, even though I was really, I spent a lot of time in my life as a gym owner and a trainer and an entrepreneur, that focused in large part, not entirely. I mean, been a tech entrepreneur for many years, and then but I've spent a lot of time as a lifestyle entrepreneur in my latter life. And even during some of those times as a lifestyle entrepreneur, I oftentimes fell into really bad patterns. Even though I espoused great nutrition is like 8% or less of the entire lifestyle equation. Yet it gets like 90% of our time and attention when it comes to lifestyle, but it's also oftentimes just divorced from how we're living our lives. Athletes don't think that way. And while you may have, not be into sports or even a fitness enthusiast, what I'm suggesting to you today is that you've got to actually have that mindset if you want the energy, health, and performance to be able to that you need to succeed in what it is you're up to in the world, and with a family, with your career, with your business, right? If you want to sustain and play the long game where you're building something that you can leave behind and not burn out or trade your health for that success, where even if you get successful, you cut it short, right? If you want to be a healthy, high achieving person who thrives, you've got to have a lifestyle that supports your success, right? And that is bridged by performance, right? You've got to focus on human performance, but human performance is a lifestyle. And it starts with the 24-hour cycle. You've got to get that fully dialed in all the way. Now, everything I described on today's podcast is the dilemma. It's the predicament that most people face. And they wonder why they're struggling, because they're living that way, and then they're trying to solve it with heroic efforts at dieting or exercise or all the whole plethora of symptom solvers out there that may help you solve your symptoms in the short term, but because you never established a lifestyle that supports you and what you're up to in the world, because you never understood human energy, which is the crux of it all. You've got to understand human energy, what sources it, what drives it, right? How you manage it, etc. Because that's really the core of what you call a performance lifestyle. You got to understand how to manage your energy day to day to day. But you also have to understand what energy is and the fact that it points to, what you really are, right? Before who you think you are. You've got to have a handle and master human energy so that you can master human performance. And when you do, it'll change your perspective. As a matter of fact, it will change everything. But it starts in very practical terms with really understanding how you achieve your goals and learning the 12 fundamentals that you need to know to live your life like a pro, to understand what a performance lifestyle is and how you can start to develop in those skills, habits, and routines in your own life and take the way you live from where you are to where you want to be. It starts there, right? You want to live a performance lifestyle before you ever attempt to live a high performance lifestyle. People who think they're living a high performance lifestyle right now, what they're really doing is they're just trying to stay super willful and super productive all day long, but they're not really living. They're confusing productivity with performance. And human performance results in increased productivity, but it's not productivity itself. It's based on human performance means that you're able to function and perform at a high level without burning out or trading your health for success. And that would mean that it would have to be a lifestyle. Performance, there would have to be a lifestyle that you'd have to fully dial in. And it starts with the 24-hour cycle, right? So, the skills that you learn that you apply on a day-to-day basis become the fundamentals of successful living that you apply week to week and eventually 365, right? My PL, my performance lifestyle, which we acronym down to PL, my PL 365 is really the mindset that I go out with every single day because I always have a relentless demand of pursuits on my time and energy, as a father, as a husband, as, a partner, as a business guy, as a thought leader, as an author. I mean, all these different roles that I play, but it all wraps around my lifestyle. And that is the lifestyle that I need to sustain and succeed, to function and perform, to manage my energy, my health, and my performance so that I can be, a productive person, I can be a creator and I can achieve my very ambitious goals that I have in this life because I want to enjoy that process, as do you, I'm sure. But that's not how most of us are living. How most of us are living are how I described in 20 plus minutes of this call. And we need to get out of that. We need to take, I think it's the blue pill, right? We need to take the blue pill and get out of that matrix of mayhem that so many of us live into, right? And it's so subtle because, when you're a drunk and you're at a party, when you're drunk and you are not a drunk, but when you are drunk at a party where everybody's tipsy, that's normal. And, it's sort of metaphoric to how people live today. A lot of us are like drunks we're drunk at a party, but the whole world around us is at the same party. So, I think there's a statement I learned from a mentor and friend of mine, Brian Johnson, It's no sign, I forget who actually said it at the moment, but I'll bring it up on another podcast. It's no sign of health to be adjusted to an abnormally sick society, right? When you're fully adapted to a sick society, that's no measure of health. And what you want to be is you want to understand the fundamentals of successful living, break out of that matrix of mayhem, and start living a lifestyle that supports you and what you're up to in the world. So that's our podcast for today. My name is John Alan Mollenhauer. My friends call me John Alan or Jam. This is the Live Like a Pro podcast audio version for YouTube, where I often just do talks on the evolution of lifestyle, giving rise to a performance lifestyle and why I'm doing it, and share a lot of ideas so that you have some context for why you want to live a lifestyle that supports you and what you're up to in the world. I share personal stories. I will often just talk about how things developed. So it's a behind the scenes view of how performance lifestyle really developed. And when you hear interviews in the Live Like a Pro podcast on iTunes, where you discover the secrets of healthy, high achieving people who thrive, which is often an interview format, you've got a lot of other perspective behind those interviews as to where I'm coming from as one of the people out in front in developing this idea. So have a great day. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at my professional website, which is johnalanjam.com. That's why I often, by the way, say, hi, my name is John Alan Mollenhauer. My friends call me John Alan or Jam, and I hope you will too. So I just named my website after this little routine that I often say at the start and end of all of our podcasts. And you just go to johnalanjam.com. Just a longer story behind that. My last name is Mollenhauer, just so you know. So when you see my name, John Alan Mollenhauer, that's my real name. Those are my initials, Jam. The reason why I often don't use Mollenhauer is because people really mess that name up, man. I have been called every version of that you can possibly imagine. They can say the word Eisenhower. Maybe it just rolls off the tongue a little bit easier, but Mollenhauer doesn't roll off as easy, even though I just made it sound pretty easy. But, Molinari, Mollenhauer, Mollenhauser, etc. So I often just went by John Allen or by my initials, Jam. And I hope you will too. You can reach me at johnalanjam.com, and I look forward to sharing more thoughts on the next podcast. Talk to you soon.